Over the years, the way languages are taught has evolved dramatically, reflecting changes in educational philosophy, psychology, and the needs of learners. In this video, we'll take a journey through the major methods that have shaped English language teaching, from the classical approaches of the 19th century to the flexible, learner-centered practices of today. Whether you're a teacher, student, or simply curious about how language instruction has changed, this overview will provide valuable insights into the principles and practices that have guided generations of educators. Let's begin by looking at the earliest formalized method, the grammar translation method. The grammar translation method, or GTM, originated in the early 19th century. Initially designed for teaching classical languages like Latin and Greek, it was soon adapted for modern languages, including English. The main goal was to enable learners to read literature and understand grammatical structures, rather than to speak or listen in the target language. This method reflected the academic priorities of the time, focusing on intellectual development and mastery of written texts. As we move forward, you'll see how this approach laid the groundwork for future methodologies, even as its limitations became apparent. The grammar translation method is characterized by its explicit teaching of grammar rules and translation exercises. Students spend much of their time translating sentences between English and their native language, memorizing vocabulary lists, and learning grammar deductively. Reading and writing are prioritized, while speaking and listening receive little attention. This method assumes that understanding grammar and vocabulary is the foundation for language mastery. However, it often results in learners who can read and write well, but struggle with real-life communication. In a typical grammar translation classroom, students might be asked to translate a passage from English into their native language and then back again. Teachers present grammar rules, and students memorize lists of vocabulary and verb conjugations. The classroom environment is often quiet and teacher-centered, with little opportunity for spontaneous conversation. While this method can build a strong foundation in grammar and reading, it often leaves students unprepared for real-world communication, especially in speaking and listening. As educators recognized the limitations of the grammar translation method, a new approach emerged, the direct method. Influenced by how children naturally acquire language, the direct method emphasizes immersion in the target language. Teachers avoid using the student's native language, instead encouraging communication entirely in English. This method marks a significant shift towards oral proficiency and real-life language use, setting the stage for more interactive and communicative classrooms. The direct method centers on oral communication. Grammar is taught inductively, meaning students learn rules through examples and practice, rather than direct explanation. Teachers use conversation, question and answer exercises, and contextual learning to build language skills. Pronunciation and listening comprehension are key priorities, and visual aids or real-life objects often support instruction. This method aims to create a more dynamic, student-centered classroom where language is learned through use, not just study. In practice, the direct method transforms the classroom into an interactive space. Teachers use real-life objects, pictures, and actions to introduce new vocabulary and grammar. Students participate in dialogues, role plays, and question and answer sessions, practicing language patterns in meaningful situations. The emphasis is on speaking and listening, with grammar and vocabulary learned through use rather than memorization. This approach helps build confidence and fluency, making language learning more engaging and effective. The audiolingual method, or ALM, gained prominence in the United States during the 1940s, especially during World War II. There was an urgent need to train soldiers in foreign languages quickly and effectively. Drawing on behaviorist theories, ALM emphasizes habit formation through repetition and reinforcement. This method marked a return to structured practice, but with a strong focus on oral skills and listening comprehension. The audiolingual method relies on drills, pattern practice, and mimicry to instill correct language habits. Students repeat model dialogues and practice substitution drills, changing one word at a time to reinforce patterns. Errors are discouraged to prevent the formation of bad habits. The teacher's role is to provide models and correct mistakes immediately. This method is highly structured, aiming to make language use automatic through repetition. In an audiolingual classroom, students listen to a model dialogue and repeat it multiple times until it becomes automatic. They engage in substitution drills, where one word is changed and the new sentence is repeated. The focus is on accuracy and habit formation, with little emphasis on creative language use. While this method can quickly build basic speaking and listening skills, it may not prepare students for spontaneous real-world communication. By the 1970s, educators began to see the limitations of the audiolingual method, especially its lack of focus on meaningful communication. Communicative language teaching, or CLT, emerged as a response. The central idea is that the primary goal of language learning is to communicate meaningfully and effectively in real-life situations. This approach values not only grammatical accuracy, but also the ability to use language appropriately in various social contexts. Communicative language teaching emphasizes communicative competence, which includes grammatical accuracy, sociolinguistic appropriateness, and strategic language use. Authentic materials, interactive activities, and task-based learning are central to this approach. Students are encouraged to use language in realistic contexts, working together to solve problems, complete tasks, and engage in meaningful conversations. The teacher acts as a facilitator, guiding students toward effective communication. In a CLT classroom, students might participate in role plays, simulations, or group projects that mimic real-life situations. For example, they could practice ordering food in a restaurant or asking for directions. The focus is on fluency and the ability to convey meaning, rather than perfect grammatical accuracy. Mistakes are seen as part of the learning process, and students are encouraged to experiment with language in a supportive environment. Task-based language teaching, or TBLT, developed in the 1980s as an extension of communicative language teaching. TBLT places meaningful, goal-oriented tasks at the center of instruction. The focus is on using language as a tool to accomplish specific objectives, such as planning a trip or solving a problem. This approach reflects a shift towards practical, real-world language use and learner autonomy. TBLT involves students in tasks that require them to use English in practical, real-world contexts. These tasks are designed to be meaningful and relevant, encouraging students to communicate and collaborate. Language learning becomes a byproduct of engaging in these activities, rather than the primary focus. The teacher's role is to facilitate, provide input, and offer feedback as needed, supporting students as they work towards their goals. In a TBLT classroom, students might be asked to plan a trip, complete a group project, or solve a problem using English. The emphasis is on communication and collaboration, with language skills developed through meaningful use. The teacher provides support and feedback, but students take an active role in their own learning. This approach helps learners develop the confidence and skills needed to use English in real-life situations. By the 1990s, educators recognized that no single teaching method could meet the needs of all learners in all contexts. This realization led to the post-method era, which values adaptability, eclecticism, and the teacher's role as a reflective practitioner. Teachers are encouraged to draw on a wide range of methodologies and strategies, tailoring instruction to the specific needs and goals of their students. This flexible approach marks a new chapter in language teaching. In the post-method era, teachers combine elements from various approaches, such as CLT, TBLT, and others, to create lessons that best suit their students. This era values learner autonomy, critical thinking, and the integration of language skills in meaningful contexts. Teachers act as facilitators and guides, encouraging students to take responsibility for their own learning and to reflect on their progress. A teacher in the post-method era might start a lesson with a communicative activity to engage students, followed by a task-based project, and conclude with a reflective discussion on language use. The approach is flexible and responsive, allowing teachers to adapt to the needs of their students and the demands of the curriculum. This era empowers both teachers and learners, fostering a more dynamic and effective language learning environment. Let's briefly compare the major ELT methodologies discussed. The grammar translation method focuses on reading and grammar, while the direct method emphasizes speaking and listening. The audiolingual method prioritizes habit formation through drills, and communicative language teaching centers on meaningful communication. Task-based language teaching uses real-world tasks as the basis for learning, and the post-method era encourages flexibility and adaptation. Each method has its strengths and limitations, and understanding them helps teachers make informed choices. The history of English language teaching methodologies reveals a journey from rigid, rule-based instruction to flexible, learner-centered approaches. Each method reflects the educational values and societal needs of its time. Today, teachers have a rich toolkit of strategies to draw from, allowing them to adapt to diverse classrooms and individual learners. By understanding the evolution of ELT, educators can make informed decisions that best support their students' language development and foster a love of learning.